My shopping list was still in my pocket when I pushed open the apartment door, arms aching from 2 heavy grocery bags. The Tuesday sun was sliding across the Sacramento sky, and warm light spilled over the kitchen counter I had wiped down that morning. Normally, that glow made me feel safe. Not today. Melissa sat at my dining table like a queen, one leg crossed over the other, brush hovering above a bottle of pink polish. She did not look up when she spoke. "Make me something cute, Evelyn. Avocado toast with the good pepper, and brew iced coffee." I set the bags down and felt the plastic draw red lines across my fingers. There was milk, oranges, bread, a small steak I had promised myself for the weekend. I had paid for all of it. I had paid rent for 8 months. Melissa flicked her nails toward the kitchen. "You are already standing there. This is my apartment," I said, not raising my voice. "I just got home. I need to put things away." She blew on her nails and finally lifted her eyes. "You live in our home now. We let you stay because you help us. So help." The word "let" stung. I had covered their deposits, paid the past due utilities, slipped cash into Ryan's wallet before his early shift. I swallowed and kept my tone steady. "I am not your maid." Keys turned in the lock. Ryan came in with his apron and laptop bag, shoulders hunched from work. He took one look at the scene, the groceries, Melissa's expression, and the line between his brows tightened. "What is happening?" "Your mother is being difficult," Melissa said. I asked for toast. "She wants to turn it into a fight." Ryan exhaled. "Mom, just make the toast. It is not worth the drama." Melissa stepped closer, her perfume sharp as citrus. "Here is how this works. You help us. No questions. When I ask, you do. Otherwise, this living arrangement ends today." My heart thudded, then slowed. "That is the choice," I said. Ryan moved beside his wife. "Yes. Decide now." "All right," I said softly. "Good. Kitchen." I shook my head. "I will pack." Silence cut the room clean in half. Melissa's smile slipped. Ryan's mouth opened, ready to call me back to the old script, to apology. I turned down the hall we had painted together. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and began to fold what would fit. My husband's photo slid into a side pocket. My pillbox, reading glasses, and ledger. I remembered Ryan at 5, clutching a dinosaur lunchbox, begging me not to be late after school. I remembered the diner shifts, the swollen feet, the envelopes marked rent. Love had carried us. Respect had not. When I rolled the suitcase to the door, they had not moved. I left the groceries on the counter and my keys on the hook. The old Toyota started. I did not look back. I left the complex at a slow crawl, as if any sudden movement might shatter the thin glass of my composure. The boulevard along the river smelled like wet eucalyptus, and the last warmth of the afternoon pressed against the windshield. I passed the market where I used to let Ryan pick out cereal boxes. I passed the brick church. Sacramento looked the same, but something had tilted inside me. A picture frame set straight after years of leaning. The motel sat 2 blocks from the water, a white rectangle with a faded sign and a row of tidy geraniums. My room had a short bed, a humming air unit, and a window that squared a sliver of sky. I set the suitcase on the luggage rack and stood still, waiting for regret to arrive. It did not. A quiet I could trust gathered in the corners. The walls stopped listening to anyone but me. I washed my hands, then placed my ledger on the table. The cover had softened from years in my purse. Every paycheck I ever stretched lived in those pages. Tuition lines, wedding deposits, 8 months of rent, circled in blue. I opened my tablet and signed into the bank. Numbers met me with their cool honesty. Checking, savings. A modest retirement the diner crowd teased me for saving. Enough to breathe. Enough to stand up straight. I wrote 3 columns on motel stationery. Today. This week. Next month. Under today, I printed 4 tasks in a steady hand. Stop, rent, transfer. Remove phones from my plan. Freeze card access for Ryan. Call the insurance agent. I dated the page and tucked it under the ledger like a promise. Outside. A train horn crossed the river air. I brewed the packet coffee by the sink and let it sit until it tasted like something. Grief rose and fell in me like water under a dock. I had left the apartment, but the mother in me still checked the clock, still pictured dinner plates, still imagined Ryan walking in and saying he was sorry. I let the picture fade. My phone lit with the number I knew, but did not answer. It stilled, then lit again. I turned it face down and drew the curtains halfway. A shadow of sunlight lined the carpet like a path. I sat on the bed and practiced breathing from my belly, the way the nurse taught me after my husband died. Before sleep, I walked to the window and touched the glass. Tomorrow I would start the calls. Tonight I would protect the decision. I whispered one sentence to the quiet room. Love does not survive, where respect has been starved. Morning arrived the way I hoped it would. Clean and ordinary. I brewed motel coffee, opened the curtains halfway, and set my ledger on the little table. The page I labeled today waited for ink. I uncapped my pen and dialed the first number. Good morning. This is Suncrest Credit Union, the woman said. I gave my account ending, then my request. Please cancel the automatic rent transfer to Midtown Lofts, Unit 2A, effective immediately. The agent typed, paused, then read back a confirmation code. I wrote the numbers in square boxes, the way I taught second graders to practice neatness. One chain. Unlatched. Next, I called Oakline Wireless. 2 lines are on my family plan. I said, remove both today. The rep confirmed the devices and offered an, are you sure? I used my teacher voice. Yes, I am. She set the change for noon and warned me about proration. I thanked her and copied down the ticket number. Meridian Visa answered on the 3rd ring. My son is an authorized user. I said, remove him and issue me a new card. I also asked to close a store account linked through Meridian, the Cedar Mark card I never used. The woman explained what would still be my responsibility and what would not. I repeated her words back and recorded another code. North Loop Insurance came next. Months ago, I added a renter rider for Ryan and Melissa because they swore they would pay me back. Remove it, I said. Please send confirmation by email. Between calls, I changed passwords, enabled 2-factor, and moved my documents into a new folder labeled Living Proof. I photographed receipts and statements, dated them, and synced them to cloud storage. Every click sounded like a latch sliding into place. By late morning, 4 checkmarks marched down the Today column. The air unit hummed against the window. Somewhere, a housekeeper knocked and moved on. I ate an apple from the grocery bag I had saved for myself and drank water from a paper cup. Classrooms had taught me how to manage storms. Keep your tone calm. Ask for what policy allows. Document. Repeat until the system yields. I did that again here, and the system yielded. The phone lit twice during lunch with Ryan's number and once with an unknown Sacramento exchange. I let them pass. The screen went still, black as river water. I capped my pen and looked at the line beneath the list. Next month will be beneficiaries, wills, and whatever comes after courage. For today. The cutting was complete. Evening would bring whatever it chose to bring anyway. The room was quiet. But I understood. Quiet rarely lasts for long. By Thursday, the silence fractured. Missed calls stacked like fallen books on my lock screen. Ryan started polite, asking if there had been a glitch with the rent transfer. Melissa followed with clipped messages about the phones not working. By afternoon, the tone sharpened. The landlord wants the full amount by Monday. What did you do? I set the phone face down and let the motel air unit hum a steady answer. Friday morning brought a harder edge. Ryan's voice shook. Mom. The bank says the autopay is gone. He asked why I would do that over nothing. Then Melissa called and did not leave a message at all. Just heavy breathing and a hang-up. I brewed the motel coffee and opened my ledger. Calm is a shelter you build from small tasks. I checked that each confirmation code matched the bank notifications. Everything I had turned off stayed off. By noon, the calls shifted from pleading to urgent. A number from a collections office flashed and faded. The screen filled with question marks where names should have been. I went for a walk along the levee to keep my hands from shaking. The river moved the way truth moves when it finally gets a chance. Slow, certain, uninterested in argument. In the produce aisle at Arden Market, I heard my name. Evelyn Carter. I turned to find Marisol from the district office, a woman whose gossip always ran a little ahead of the afternoon. She studied my face and lowered her voice. I am sorry to bring this up, but my niece works the counter at a pharmacy on J Street. A young woman who looks like your daughter-in-law has been buying the most expensive cosmetics with a card that shows your name, then returning them for cash 2 days later. My breath did a strange thing, like stepping off a curb you did not see. Are you sure it is my name? Marisol nodded. She said the cashier remembered because the signature did not match the card imprint. They flagged it in the system. I thanked her and pressed my palm to the cool metal of the card. The world did not tilt. It cleared. Back in the motel room, I opened my bank portal and scrolled through the last 6 weeks. Merchant codes told small truths if you knew how to listen. Premium cosmetics. A department store I had not entered in years. 2 charges at a boutique electronics shop, followed by cash return entries. The pattern glowed like a stain under light. It was never about a sandwich. It was about a pipeline. My account to her hands to cash. Entitlement wrapped around a scheme. I photographed the screen and saved the images to the folder I had named Living Proof. Then I wrote a new line on the page beneath today. Police. Financial crimes. Bring printouts and names. The pen felt heavier than it had in the morning, as if it knew it was writing the first sentence of a different kind of story. Saturday morning, I press a clean shirt and walk into the financial crimes unit at the precinct downtown. The lobby smells like copy paper and lemon cleaner. A young officer at the desk takes my name, scans the printouts from my folder, and hands me a small clipboard. Purpose: a visit. I circle credit card fraud and elder financial exploitation, then add the dates and merchants I mapped last night. The officer studies the pattern and nods me through a gray door. Detective Sofia Alvarez greets me with a firm handshake. Her office is small, the bulletin board crowded with timelines and arrows. She listens without interrupting while I explain Melissa, the ultimatum, the cutoff, and the charges that turned into cash. When I finish, she taps her pen against the printouts. You did our work for us, she says. Multiple returns within 30 days. Different stores. Consistent cardholder name with mismatched signatures. That is a known cash conversion pattern. We will request footage, receipts, and point of sale logs. Do you consent to a formal report? I sign. Initial and date. She reads the last page aloud. Estimated loss around $900 to date. Probable intent to continue. Escalating behavior. She slides a pamphlet toward me. Victim rights and a case number. Keep documenting everything. I show her the folder on my tablet labeled Living Proof. She whistles softly as the thumbnails bloom. This is organized. Miss Carter. It will hold up. As I leave the precinct, my phone vibrates with a new message from an unknown number. Everyone knows you abandoned us. People are talking. I forward the message to the detective and keep walking. That afternoon, I go where rumors travel fast and die just as quickly when faced with a steady voice. The corner cafe, the church office, the little library where I read to first graders on Thursdays. I do not campaign. I simply answer honest questions. I paid their rent for 8 months. I removed them from my accounts. I filed a report about unauthorized charges. I am safe. Empathy arrives in small, practical ways. A deacon asks if I need a ride to the motel. A clerk offers to email me a statement with highlighted entries. The cafe owner, who watched me grade papers at the back table for years, squeezes my hand and says, "We have your back." By evening, my name and my story have moved farther than Melissa's voice can push. Facts travel without shouting. Truth learns the streets and finds its own way home. I sleep with the folder under my pillow, not from fear but from habit. A teacher guarding papers. A mother guarding herself at last. Sunday after service, I stepped into the sunlit courtyard to thank Pastor Reed for the ride when a voice cut through the chatter behind me. There she is. The woman who abandoned her family. Heads turned. Melissa stood near the sidewalk. Hair perfect. Sunglasses in her hand like a prop. 2 teenagers paused with iced drinks. An older couple slowed their walk to the parking lot. "Hello, Melissa," I said. My tone stayed even. "What do you need?" She planted herself a few feet away and lifted her phone as if she were filming. "I need everyone to know this is elder abuse. She is being influenced by people at the bank. She is not thinking clearly. She cut off our rent and our phones. Who does that to their own child?" I looked at the faces around us. Curiosity, discomfort, concern. I kept my voice steady. I filed a police report about unauthorized charges on my card. Detective Sofia Alvarez is the case officer. The number is on record. Any questions about my mental capacity can be answered by my doctor and by the documentation I have brought today. I took a folded paper from my purse and read without looking at Melissa. Transaction dates. Merchants. Return amounts in cash. The teenagers leaned closer. The older couple nodded once. Melissa laughed. A short sound with no humor in it. "You memorized the story," she said. "It still does not change the fact that you walked out on your son." Pastor Reed eased between us. One palm open. "Miss Thompson, this is church property. If you have a grievance, take it to the proper office. We are not going to host a scene." Melissa glanced at the gathering circle and decided to change tactics. She dropped her voice to something like sympathy. "Evelyn, come home. We can talk privately." People are getting the wrong idea. Words have edges. I chose mine carefully. The wrong idea is that I owe you my labor and my bank account. That idea is over. She stepped in close enough that I could smell her perfume. I felt the old pattern call to me, the reflex to soothe and fix. I let it pass. Melissa flicked her sunglasses back on. "This is not over," she said loudly, and turned on her heel. In the afternoon, Detective Alvarez called. She had already received a complaint from Melissa accusing me of being manipulated by the bank. "We are noting her allegation," the detective said, "and we will need no action unless a medical professional files a capacity concern, which no one has. Given today, I recommend a restraining order. Her behavior is escalating." I wrote down the instructions as the detective spoke. Tomorrow morning. Courthouse. Temporary order request. Bring documentation and witness names. When we ended the call, I felt the smallest drop of something like relief. It was not victory. It was the feeling of a door being fitted with a lock. Before dinner, I made another round of practical calls. I informed 2 creditors who had left voicemails that Ryan did not live at my address, that he was an adult responsible for his own debts, that future mail should be directed to him. I did not offer details. I did not offer apologies. Each person thanked me and updated their files. At dusk, I walked to the motel office for more coffee packets. The manager, a quiet man with a faded ball cap, tipped his chin toward the parking lot cameras. "We keep the tapes for 90 days, he said. Unprompted. If someone has been bothering you, we can pull it for the police. I had not told him a thing. Word travels in small places. That night, a car idled by my door for several minutes, then rolled away. I stood behind the curtain and breathed in and out until my hands were steady. I took my folder from beneath the pillow and added a note in clean block letters. Monday. File for a restraining order. If approached again, call the detective first, then the manager. Keep the lights on. Sleep came late, but it came. When it did, it felt like a tide turning under the ribs, slow and certain, as if the river had decided to move me along whether I was ready or not. Monday began inside the courthouse with fluorescent lights and a line of people holding folders like shields. I filed the request and sat on a wooden bench while a clerk stamped dates that sounded like small gavels. By noon, the temporary restraining order was granted. The language was plain. Do not contact. Do not approach. Stay away from residence and place of lodging. A deputy folded the papers, nodded once, and said he would handle service. An hour later, my phone rang with Ryan's number. He did not waste time pretending this was fine. "Mom, please pick up." When I answered, his words tumbled. "Melissa is sick. She is pregnant. The stress you are causing could hurt the baby. We need help with doctor visits and rent until I can get more hours." "Congratulations," I said, and kept my voice soft. "Which doctor?" "I will call the office and put funds on account directly." A stretch of silence, then a cough that sounded rehearsed. "We do not have an appointment yet. It is early. If you could just give us cash, we can handle it." I imagined the ledger on my motel table. I pictured the pattern of charges and returns. Cash was the shape of every lie in this town. "Have Melissa give me the clinic's number," I said. "I will work with them." He ended the call without a goodbye. By mid-afternoon, a text came from Detective Alvarez. Order served. Subject expressed anger and left the location on foot. Document any further contact. The further contact arrived through other people's eyes. At Riverbend Roasters, the manager glanced toward the back room when I ordered tea. He lowered his voice. "I am sorry. Mims, Carter. We had to let Ryan go this morning. Too many customers asking questions. He needs to focus on clearing things up." At the apartment building, Betty from 2 doors down called to say a sheriff's car sat out front earlier. I thanked her and reminded myself that doors with locks can still be knocked upon by memory. It did not take Melissa long to try a different door. That evening, a message arrived from the landlord at Midtown Lofts. A man who used phrases like overdue with more sorrow than threat. "Miss Carter, Miss Thompson informed me she intends to claim tenant rights as a lawful occupant. I have informed her that your name alone is on the lease and on every payment. She is not on file. Please confirm." I wrote back with 2 sentences and attached 8 months of receipts. A weight inside me shifted. Not lighter, but placed. Near dusk, the deputy called again. We attempted to verify a pregnancy claim at a clinic she mentioned. No records. He paused. "She is gone from the apartment. Neighbors saw her pack a trunk and drive away. No forwarding information." The room went quiet in a way that felt more final than peaceful. I set the phone down and stared at the motel curtains until they blurred. Running is not the same as changing. Running is what someone does when every path back to honesty looks uphill. I walked to the sink, rinsed my cup, and made fresh tea. Somewhere beyond the parking lot, the river kept moving. A body of water that accepts whatever it must carry, then keeps its own line. I watched steam rise and thought of my next call, the one I had been avoiding because it needed to happen in daylight and in front of people. Sunday was coming, whether I felt ready or not. Sunday came bright and cool. The kind of morning that makes stained glass look alive. I sat 4 rows from the front and folded my hands to keep them from shaking. The hymns rose and fell. And then Pastor Reed opened the floor. Ryan stood from the back aisle. He looked smaller than 27, but his voice carried. I need to tell the truth about my mother. For 8 months, she paid our rent, our utilities, our groceries, and before that she paid for my tuition and the wedding. I wanted more than I could afford. 3 weeks ago, my wife ordered her to serve or leave. I stood there and let it happen. My mother chose dignity and walked out. He swallowed hard. The charges on her card were not hers. They were ours. They were Melissa's. I am sorry. Mom, I cannot ask you to forgive me today, but I am going to earn your trust back, one choice at a time. He set my spare key on the rail and stepped away. The sanctuary breathed as if a storm had passed. People hugged me in the aisle. Mrs. Alvarez from the choir pressed a tissue into my palm without words. Pastor Reed squeezed my shoulder and said nothing at all, which was kindness in its purest form. After the benediction, Ryan met me under the oak tree. He looked straight at me. I started counseling on Friday. I told my boss the truth. If you will meet me for coffee once a week, I will take whatever honesty you can give me. I considered his face, the boy I raised flickering behind the man he was trying to become. We will start with coffee, I said. We will let time do its work. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of the building that had housed 3 generations of my family. A banner read, River Lighthouse. The women's shelter director took my hand and announced that 3 mothers and 5 children would sleep here tonight with their own keys and locks that worked. I had placed the deed into a community trust. The rent set to 0 for the first 6 months. The applause felt like a wave breaking, gentle and sure. I moved into a small cottage near Lake Natoma, a square of quiet with a porch that faced morning light. I planted tomatoes and basil in terracotta pots and learned the names of the birds that came for crumbs. On Saturdays, Ryan sat across from me at the diner and told me small truths without decoration. Some days were clumsy. Some days were good. Here is the lesson I learned when I finally walked out with my suitcase. Love that is not paired with respect turns into a debt no one can pay. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks that you control. When you use the law, the truth, and your own clear voice, you do not lose family. You give the people you love their only real chance to find it. Looking back, I realized that love without respect becomes a burden that slowly breaks you. The day I rolled my suitcase out of that apartment, I was not abandoning my family. I was giving them the chance to face their own responsibilities. Each call I made to cut off payments, each receipt I filed, each meeting with the detective reminded me that truth can stand tall only when we do. I learned that forgiveness is not the same as trust. Forgiveness can be offered freely, but trust must be earned back. One honest action at a time. Today, I live in a small cottage filled with peace, where dignity guards the door and hope waters the garden. And when I meet my son for coffee, I see not just regret, but the possibility of change. What lesson do you take from this story, and where are you watching from?